Hello and welcome to the Pinstripe Post. My name is Ryan Sampson, the host and producer of the show. He's the star of the show, Joel Sherman. Today is Tuesday, March 18th. Joel, we are just a little over a week away from the start of the baseball season for the New York Yankees. We know that baseball officially started today in Japan with the Dodgers and Cubs. But I want to check in with you before we get started. How you feeling? How's it going? I know we're spring training is getting ready to wrap up here.
Yeah, a week from today, I think everybody is out of here, right? Actually, maybe even next Monday is the last day of spring, someplace in there. I'm talking to you from Susan Waldman was in here. She was so kind. I said, "Can I use your radio booth for about half hour, 45 minutes, whatever?" And she said, "Of course." So her and Dave Sims will be in here in a little while to do a Yankee game against the Red Sox are here today. So yeah, let's get off and running because I got to give Susan and Dave their booth back.
I appreciate them giving us some time here, Joel, and I appreciate them giving you a little bit of space. So I got to start with first pitch. You know, the pitching injuries don't stop. I know that Clarke Schmidt'e, we don't know if it's going to be serious, but right now he threw a bullpen yesterday. Another injury to the rotation. Uh, you told us last week, Ryan, it's got to stop. The injuries can't keep coming, but they do keep coming, Joel. What's your read on the Clarke Schmidt'e situation? I know he's a guy you said, listen, I don't know if you can count on him staying healthy for the entire year. Also, the Paul Goldschmidt injury, cranky back, I think they called it or something like that. So, what is your read on both the Schmidt and Goldschmidt injuries here at first pitch?
Yeah, if you have Schmidt in your name, it's not a good week for you. That's the gold or not. Look, the pitching injuries are the more worrisome stuff. Schmidt said this morning to a group of reporters he felt fine, but we'll see how that goes. The Yankees have a real depth issue. I wouldn't be surprised if they're out there like somebody gets released whose arm they like. If they could stock him at AAA right now, Alan Winans is kind of next man up, or Carlos Carrasco. And I know they're saying Carlos Carrasco has thrown well here. That doesn't exactly jibe with what scouts are saying about Carlos Carrasco. Carlos Carrasco, I think, threw out the first pitch for the Guardians last year before a Yankee playoff game. I'm not sure that you could do the kind of what felt like a retirement first pitch and be in a rotation. But look, they've got to keep their depth. And as I always say, Ryan, they said two things. The season doesn't wait for you to get healthy. It's a Buck Showalter line I always use, which is, hey, nobody, like the season doesn't go, okay, well, wait until you're good. You got to figure out how to get through it. And, the Dodgers started the season today with 11 pitchers on the injured list. 11. Now, they knew most of those were going to be on the injured list going into spring training. So they built around it. I mean, they've got a $400 million payroll. They got, a great deal with Sasaki, who's going to make minimum wage this year to pitch for them to starting the second game of the season. But like they've got a lot of pitching injuries. By the way, Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts didn't play today because of injury. They're going to hit everyone, and this will probably be a theme. It's certainly one we've touched before, and it will be a theme throughout the year and anytime we're doing the show. The best teams figure out a way through it. The problem for the Yankees trying to figure out a best way through it is they just, like anything that would have created depth. J.D. Brubaker would have created some depth. They've taken a lot of time to try to heal him from Tommy John. He went down with a rib injury here. He's weeks away from being a candidate. Chase Hampton, who was going to maybe be somebody if he could build up over the course of the year, needed Tommy John surgery. Obviously, Cole out for the season, Luis Gil out for several months. They've just taken an incredible hit at their depth, and they could really use a guy or two at AAA. I had dinner last night with a scout, and I said, I think the way the Yankees are built again, where I think they'll average 4.5 to 5 runs, have a good bullpen, and probably even have a better defense and running game than they had last year. Can they get a starter who gives up 4 runs in 5 innings, which is like a 6 ERA? But at the end of 5 innings, with a good bullpen, you'll have a chance to win. Can they stock a guy like that, a guy or two at AAA like that? At a moment where the owner doesn't want to spend more money on the payroll and go get like a Kyle Gibson who, but again, like let's be frank about Kyle Gibson would have to go through a spring training
Yeah.
essentially now. It's the end of, Spencer Turnbull, Lance Lynn, who's ever still out there. Do the Diamondbacks? I'm curious what's going on with Jordan Montgomery. in Arizona, who was kind of the sixth man in a five-man rotation when I was there a couple of weeks ago, but is making $22.5 million this year. How much do the Diamondbacks eat? Is Montgomery much better than last year when he was a bad starting pitcher in the major leagues? I think there'll probably be people at the margins, and the Yankees are probably going to have to shove a couple of those people at the margins onto their Scranton roster. I was just about to date myself by calling it the Columbus roster, and at their AAA roster, and just to have depth. Like this isn't the time of year where you get a number one or two. Though I always
No.
hate, like the Yankees probably have made a call on Dylan Cease. They've probably made some calls on Sandy Alcantara. I don't think Cease is going. I think the Marlins will probably set a very high price for Alcantara, but I think the second they hear it, they'll do it. Like they're not going anyplace. They're gonna, the only good thing you can say about the Marlins probably in 2025 is they probably won't lose as many games as the White Sox. That's about it. That's the end of the sentence on them. So when they could kick it forward to the future, they're going to do it. The problem is Yankee farm system isn't kind of blessed with depth right now. But, you could always do it. George Lombard certainly has opened eyes down here. And if you want to start a trade with George Lombard and Spencer Jones and Rafael Flores, like the Yankees have guys, they could go do it. How much do they want to deplete it for Alcantara right now? I don't know. But like, I have to assume Miami isn't going to just sit around. They're going to make it 150 cents on the dollar if you want to do the trade today. And if they hear 150 cents, it isn't like, well, we want to see if we're in the race or not. They're not in the race.
And that's kind of led to some of the pitching depth issues that you've highlighted here, Joel, especially in the offseason, because of all the moves they made in previous years at deadlines and also in the offseason. They've traded away a ton of their pitching depth in both the minors and at the major league level. And you used it to get a guy like Cody Bellinger. You traded away Nestor Cortez and a guy like Cody Petit. Like those moves, and to get Devin Williams as well. Those moves have certainly hit your depth and rotation. And like you said, they're feeling it. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out and what kind of guys they can bring into the AAA. The one thing that caught my eye or my ear that you said was Carrasco, because I'm hearing at least what the reports are and what Baron Boone says is, oh, we like Carrasco. We think he can help us. Like, is Carrasco gonna make the opening day roster? Like, that's what it seems like because I
Well,
see
I
a
think
little
he's,
gymnastics
yeah.
with the Will Warren situation too.
Yeah, so I think they're both going to make the opening day roster if they're here. But the first thing I'll say is if you'll tell me any time in the 8 years that Aaron Boone said one of his players wasn't good, I'll say that I'll just trust what Yankee people are saying about their players. Like so. Therefore, you got to go to somebody who's less a like everything isn't sunshine and roses and or being deceptive, whatever's going on there. So, you want to ask people outside. And, they've kind of generally said the fastball's up a mile or two, but it looks like Carlos Carrasco. It's not, Carlos Carrasco in his prime was an outstanding pitcher. Carlos Carrasco over the last few years is a very hittable right-hander. And so Carlos Carrasco's not on, he's on a minor league deal. On the 22nd, which I believe is Saturday, but don't hold me to that. He has an opt out. My suspicion is at that point he'll try to force the Yankees' hand and say, "What's the deal here?" And the Yankees will have to decide whether to put him on the 40-man roster. And if he's on the 40-man roster, because obviously he doesn't have any options, he's in his mid-30s, he means he's on the roster. And at that point, I don't want to go too in the weeds here. You could get a player's consent who has as much service time as him for essentially what would be a 45-day window. So he has a $1.5 million contract. So the Yankees could get what's called advance consent from him if he's willing to do it, where if he made 3 bad starts and they released him, they would only pay him for that period of time instead of the whole 1.5. Again, when they're counting pennies here
Yeah.
with Steinbrenner, because they want to save something for July, and probably finish at about 310, 311, 312, whatever their number is that they want to finish at for that. I think every 100,000 million, whatever counts. And so I think they'll probably do that. At that point, does Carrasco say, well, I actually have an opportunity with Team X, and they're going to guarantee the 1.5. My suspicion is both Warren and Carrasco make it, even if Schmidt is healthy enough to be part of the opening rotation. My suspicion, again, without knowing absolutely, is that Schmidt opens on the IL because there will be just not enough time to kind of get to where they want to go. Plus, the difference between him starting the 6th game and about the 10th game, because remember, you could backdate 3 days into spring training. So it would be 12 regular season days. And the Yankees have 2 or 3 off days very early in the season. So it wouldn't be like he'd miss a bunch of time. So I think what it would allow them to do is go around twice with Warren and Carrasco and like go, okay, like we like X or we like Y or we like both. Let's keep them around as long guys. So today, as I'm talking to you, is Tuesday. The Yankees are having their first serious roster meetings today. All their baseball executives from all their different branches are meeting, and literally everybody will do what like a 26-man roster, but also there's a lot of permutations. Hey, we
Mm.
might be able to do this trade for a righty hitting third baseman or outfielder or a depth starter. What would that do to the rest of our roster? So I think that it's a very, I think this is probably true for pretty much every team. But the Yankees are in a very fluid situation for roster spots 21 to 26, and certainly the last 3 spots on their staff, pitching staff.
100%. 100%, Joel. And I appreciate you laying that out. And I think a lot of fans are going to appreciate the way you lay that out and how that works with the advanced, for Carrasco and asking him if you take that 45-day window tryout. That's something I didn't know. And that's cool for you to explain that to us. I got to move over to Do Up because you talked about how they're going to finish the rest of this roster and how they're planning it out. 3 guys here for Do Up that I would love to hear what you have to say about them. And 3 guys I think that have made some noise here in spring. And they're young. Ben Rice, and you talked about him early on in spring training, Jason Dominguez, and Oswaldo Cabrera. It feels like the way things are going right now, those 3 guys are obviously going to be on the team opening day roster. At least I would assume with Ben Rice. And I also got to ask you, if you were to rank those 3, how do you see the most impact between those 3 offensively that they can contribute to this team?
So I think not only will all 3 be on the team, I think all 3 will be on in the opening day lineup against the right hand, the Freddie Peralta, Cabrera at third, Dominguez in left, and Ben Rice as the DH. Um, you know, again, it's been a theme of ours last year and again this year, which is there is stuff that happens in spring training that matters, but how would you know? Like, because some of it's going to matter and some of it isn't. Ben Rice has not hit a ball hard in every at bat I've seen him in spring training. The ball, I'm now that's one that is corroborated by scouts. I'm like, have I seen this guy even miss hit a ball this whole spring? And they'll be like, no, he looks great and he's squaring it up. But like Trent Grisham looks great hitting. And the Yankees again are like, wow. And by the way, if they feel that way, I think you're going to see Judge DH a lot while Stanton's out because they could put Grisham in center, they could move Bellinger to right, and line up that way with Dominguez in left. So I think that will be part of it. That would knock some at bats away from Ben Rice, right? Because he's going to be, but I still think Ben Rice gets the majority of at bats early against righty pitching as the DH. Dominguez is going to get his shot to prove that his offense can play and that his defense won't kill them. All right, they're going to do that. We'll see once the bright lights go on. His bat has really picked up over the last week. Again, what does it mean? I don't know. I don't want to lie to our
No.
viewers because like it could really matter and it could really not matter. And I think Cabrera, I think again from the time we've done the show, is a favorite of mine. I think he's a good baseball player, but I think he's a 13th position player. I think he's a 26th man who kind of Marwin Gonzalez is his way around the field, gets 250 to 300 plate appearances, brings good vibes every day, brings good, wherever you have a problem. Oh, we need a pinch runner. We need a pinch hitter. We need a guy to play third. We need a guy to play right. We need a guy, Volpe needs a day off at short. I think he could do it all. That kind of stuff. I don't see the starting third baseman in him. And he's the team's starting third baseman. So, like the Yankees have a hole at third base to me. It's not one that's easily solved. It's a weak, after, it's a very top heavy position in the sport. Like the top 5 to 8 guys are tremendous. And then the fall off is significant. You could sit with, I always encourage Yankee fans, go through third base. It's not a strong position in the sport. So I think the Yankees are out there looking for a right-hand complement to Cabrera because Peraza he could field, but I just feels like a quadruple A hitter to me.
Mm.
Again, like But I think when the season starts, if they don't do anything else, I think that will be the platoon. And
Is
they'll
Peraza and
feel
Cabrera at third for the
at
lefty righty
third.
matchup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think they're out there. And remember again, Peraza out of options, and probably still enough play where if they try to sneak him through waivers, does a team like the Marlins say, well, he's not even good enough to sit on the Yankee bench, but he might be a starter for our 110 loss team at least. Like, let's give him 200 straight plate appearances to see without the bright lights and pressure of New York, could he be a player? So I would think he doesn't get through waivers. So, the Yankees either have to keep him on the roster, trade him, or probably lose him on waivers. Uh, and this is how the world works. 24 months ago, you're battling for a shortstop job, and today you might get claimed on waivers or not make it. So, but I think in that order, I mean, I think Dominguez and Rice in particular are safe,
Yeah.
and that Cabrera is on the team in some form. Unfortunately for the Yankees, as the third baseman, because, and again, that's a kid to root for because he does things right. And if he could ever like just hit 245 with 12 homers and field the hell out of the position, he could be an okay third baseman for a team that should get power out of second base.
Yeah.
Like which is the not a traditional power place with Jazz. Can he do that? I, as you know, I like the player. I don't think he could do that, but we'll see. Because
Yeah.
they're gonna. That's what they're gonna try.
That was going to be my follow up. Is can Oswaldo actually do that? I mean, we've seen some pop here in spring, but again, like you said, Ryan, you're going to tell me I don't know what to buy in spring training. These are pitchers that are probably not going to be make major league rosters that these guys are facing, and you don't know. You can't really read too much into spring training. But the metrics I do want to highlight on Ben Rice, that like you said, he's squaring up every ball. Joel, he's in like the 90th percentile in exit velo from what he's hitting. So when he's hitting the ball, he's hitting it hard, and I think there's something here I want to highlight with Ben Rice is, and you wrote about this with the muscle he put on, and he looks stronger, and you're seeing it now in his approach and how he's hitting the ball. The metrics tell you last year that Ben Rice ran into a lot of bad luck when he hit the ball because he didn't have the power that he currently has now. And I just wonder, have the Yankees do they possibly have a full-time DH right here on their hands because we don't know when Giancarlo Stanton's going to be back. And I kind of want to, I like Ben Rice's plate discipline to be like, let him face the lefties. Let's see what the kid's got because I'd rather give the young guy a shot, especially early on in the season, to really know what you have there before you have to force your hand and say, we really need to get another bat.
Yeah, I don't see this as a complete mystery guest. I think on our first show of spring, I said the Yankees think he's going to be a five-hole hitter. That's where he's going to get. Now, did they think he was going to get there in 2025? I'm not sure that they thought that, but he does not lack for confidence, including that he thinks he's a major league catcher. Uh, and like to have a third catcher on the roster offers a little value because you could do multiple pinch running if you need to, or you could survive an injury if you have that weird injury to a second catcher. But he is going to get a chance. Like I have to assume that Giancarlo Stanton is let's put the most optimistic spin on it. May 15th, right? Like if we're saying like a quarter of the season. Well, that's 200 plate appearances from now for who the DH spot. So, he's going to get that run, and we'll see. Because I think his at bats were, especially early last year, good. And even when they were not successful late, there was still a lot of hard hit balls slash good deep count at bats. It was kind of like a little bit following the track of Austin Wells, which was like Austin Wells early last year. I think, right? I was a guy. These are good at bats. They are
Yeah.
not ending in results. But if you're watching the at bats, I'm a big guy for dragging the at bat late, swinging at strikes, and Austin Wells was doing that, and ultimately ended up the cleanup hitter for quite a while because the results began to catch up to it. So,
And they gave
like
Austin Wells that run to let
I
him
think they're good.
figure it out.
I don't think the Yankees have an alternative unless they're like, we want to preserve Judge so much he's going to do the majority of the DHing. So, like, look, there'll be a little bit of a battle for whose bat plays better, Grisham or Rice. I would think that Rice is a guy because he's homegrown and he's in control beyond this year. Grisham's a free agent. They'd like to give as long a runway to as possible to see if he could do it. He's gonna get it. The Yankees are very, very heavily left-handed, but the division is very, very heavily right-handed as far as starting pitchers. I think there's only outside of the Yankees two lefty starting pitchers, Garrett Crochet and Shane McClanahan in the division right now. So like they're going to see a ton of righty pitching, especially when they're playing in the division, which means they're going to get to play all these lefty bats a lot. And like I'm even curious, like Dom Smith has hit the ball great down here. I
Mm,
don't know what it means. Like by the way, there was a time 7, 8 years ago I thought Dom Smith might win a batting title. Like I thought great of Dom Smith when I watched him with the Mets all the time, and it just never kind of fully popped. He had like a good season and a half, and it never fully popped for him. He's doing well here. Do you want to carry yet another lefty bat on the bench? Like when would that play?
yeah.
Like when would it play? Unless you're saying like Goldschmidt needs to be like at this point play 3 out of every 4 instead of like 9 out of every 10.
But Ben Rice can play first base though as the backup
Right.
first
You
baseman.
you you right, but I guess what you could go even heavier left-handed then, right?
Right.
And where Rice is still the DH
Right.
and Dom Smith steps in and plays first base. I don't I think this is very fluid because if the Yankees end up with that right-hand hitter without subtracting anything, I think then it becomes almost impossible for Smith
Right.
to make the
Right.
team. Uh, I guess if it's a third baseman and they get rid of Peraza, he could still make it. And that might be a better situation. I think if Oswald Peraza is going to be a player, it's hard to believe it's going to be for the New York Yankees. It just feels like that little bit of it went wrong here, and it's impossible to save it now.
It's unfortunate for him, and you would have liked to have seen it play out better for him, and like you said, just it was unfortunate how it worked out for him, starting with that shortstop competition a couple of years ago. The other thing I wanted to hit up here was Jason Dominguez. So you mentioned how he's hit the ball better recently at spring training. My question to you though is I've only seen Jason Dominguez hit from the left side most of spring. I think one game he hit from the right side.
The Yankees
So
have hardly faced any lefty pitching in spring training either. That's one
okay,
of the
so I
strange
wanted to
things
see if
also.
that was intentional or not, or should I read into that?
Well, what I would read into it is if there's going to be days off for Jason Dominguez, it's going to be against lefty starters. And but I just is Pablo Reyes going to make the team as the righty guy? Again, if you listen to the Yankees, they love Pablo Reyes, but I believe he played a little bit with the Mets last year. He's been around a lot. They're looking for a right hand complement to go out there. But again, part of this could be Ryan that you and I can name names of
Mhm.
like kind of those borderline major league players who might look better today. And the Yankees could say, yeah, we just don't want to give up an asset. We want to let Everson Pereira get 150, 200 plate appearances at AAA, see how it looks. Because I'll tell you this is Everson Pereira could play defense. Like, I have no doubt that we won't sit there and go, is he going to catch this fly ball in the way you do with Dominguez? And pre-Tommy John surgery, he could really throw. Now, I don't know where he is in progression anymore, but like, I think he could be a strong corner defender. His bat did again, down here, it was a little bit like, oh, Everson Pereira. Yeah, he used to be a pretty good prospect. Can he kind of get it back in 150, 200 plate appearances? Again, cold weather, early in the season, Northeast for a kid from Latin America. That's always a difficult thing. So that gets factored into it as well. But the Yankees might be, do we want to give up an asset when we might have the answer on May 1st or May
Right.
15th with Pereira? Do we want to give up an asset for the righty hitting guy when we still have 10 people here who think Peraza could do it? So I'm telling you, like in this building, that meeting is going on right now, and they're going through all of this and seeing. But I'll give this little tidbit on it. I asked a Yankee person yesterday, shouldn't you just start Clarke Schmidt'e on the IL and start a set of game 6? He'd go game 12 or 13, whatever it is. And the person said, we're the Yankees. Every game matters. And if we think we have a better shot of winning game 6 with Clarke Schmidt'e, we're going to start Clarke Schmidt'e. And I said, all right. Like, so like if the Yankees think they could get 5% better at third base, there's somebody better than Peraza. and they could get it without it costing a lot,
Mm.
I think they do it. And I think there's going to be a lot of people on the street in the next 5 days, as teams, have all the same decisions. They're out of option guys. Their guy on a minor league deal who has an opt out on certain dates. So there'll be kind of deep roster fluctuation all over the sport. And I think the Yankees will be very aggressive on if any of it could start, if any of it hits right handed and plays a corner outfield or third base.
Interesting stuff, Joel. Interesting stuff in conversations. I'm happy to have, like, we're having similar conversations about this roster construction that this Yankees team and personnel and front office are all going over right now. It's fun to have these conversations before the season starts. I want to do a new segment here. It's rapid fire. I got to give credit to our guy Tommy Hogan for giving me this idea. Realistic or unrealistic expectations for this upcoming season. I'm going to ask you rapid fire a player and a stat, and you tell me whether that stat is realistic or unrealistic for that player to hit that stat this season. All right? Does that
All
make
right.
sense?
I like that you and your friend Tommy come up with stuff I'm not ready for. Go ahead.
Austin Wells, 350 on base percentage. He had 363 on base percentage for that 80 game stretch from the end of April to August 31st. He was 322 overall last season. Can he have a 350 on base percentage for presumably the leadoff hitter for the New York Yankees this year?
Oh, I think he's going to be the leadoff hitter against righty pitching. There's little doubt of that, and I think I think there's two reasons for that. As I escape your question, is the Yankees attempted 5 steals with the runner on base in front of Aaron Judge when Aaron Judge was at the plate last year. So if you're not going to run in front of your number 2 hitter, there's no great value of saying, well, let's put speed there. The bigger thing is put a guy who will get on base, so when Judge hits a home run, it's a 2-run homer instead of a solo shot. So I think the guy they think that has the best on-base shot, hitting from the left side to open it is Wells. To answer your question, will that be 335, 340, 345, 350? I think he has on-base skills. 350 is a pretty lofty number, getting on base 35% of the time. If you told me I had to bet it, and I don't bet on anything, I would go under, not because I don't believe in the player, but because it's a big number.
Understood. So Joel has unrealistic for Austin Wells, but he could see it happening possibly
Yeah.
if he
Yeah.
gets really good there. All right, Anthony Volpe up next. On base percentage again. We have 330. Realistic or unrealistic? He was 293 last season.
I would go under because you're talking about him adding 37 points of on base percentage, right? And it would be remarkable to add 20. But is it in his toolkit? Yeah, like if the guy who hit in the postseason shows up for most of 162 games, those were incredibly disciplined at bats. It's just that he falls in and out of it so quickly.
Yeah.
Does he stop? Does year 3? Is that the year he stopped falling in and out of it? Or is this just who Anthony Volpe is? He's more than 1,000 plate appearances into this and yet still a young player. You could convince me of either of those two things, Ryan. But it would be hard for me to believe that he's going to add about, over 30 points of on base percentage. Like in both of these situations, where do the Yankees sign up for 335 to 340 of Austin Wells? Where do they sign up for 320 of Anthony Volpe? Because that will help, as you play the game of how do you begin to replace Juan Soto offensively, it's not going to be one guy pulling a rope. It's going to be everyone playing tug of war. And so that I think I've been pretty consistent about the Volpe, Wells, Dominguez like combination, that triad doing enough where you're saying, oh, the lineup is long. It's not just strong in 2 spots. And the opposing team has to kind of really pitch to a whole lineup. Now, I think that most pitchers would rather pitch to a whole lineup that doesn't have Juan Soto in it. I know they would, but at least it gives a problem to opposing pitchers if there's length. So I think we're going to hit these questions, which is like the answer is Anthony Volpe's on base percentage needs to be better.
Right.
Austin Wells' on base percentage needs to be better. And that is a key. Like if it hits these specific levels is great, but can we talk about better before we talk about like the absolute upside of where we think they're going?
Well, that's why I think it's a fun question to pose to you because it is a realistic or unrealistic thing. And like you said, if he can hang in that 320, 315, you're feeling good about Anthony Volpe,
So
right? Because
again,
it's
like it's
20%
one of
better.
those things is a 320 on base percentage is way different for Anthony Volpe than say Giancarlo Stanton because a single or a walk for Volpe could become a double because he
Right.
could steal the base. So a 32% on base percentage for Anthony Volpe is not where you want it ultimately, but it is such a huge step above last year. Plus, gives you hidden slugging percentage because he could get an extra 90 feet anytime he's on base. And since I believe this Yankee team, I I'll set a more important over or under 125 steals. So it was 88 last year. I'd be like, can you get to 125? There's a lot of hidden slugging percentage if you're going to start adding 40 stolen bases. And by the way, distracting the other team, bringing that enthusiasm to your group that moving on the bases does instead of watching, Stanton trot, Jose Trevino run, like that group of guys. So
So, so
that would be
speaking
a
of
number
the
for me.
yeah, so speaking of the stolen bases, I gotta move to the next guy. So Volpe, you say a little bit unrealistic, 330 on base percentage to raise his on base percentage that many points.
Yep.
Jazz Chisholm. Ken Jazz Chisholm, is it unrealistic or realistic for him to have a 30 and 50 season? 30 home runs, 50 stolen bases for a full season with the New York Yankees. He had 24 and 40 last year. He had 11 home runs and 18 stolen bases in 46 games with the Yankees last year.
Yeah, again, 25-25 would go a long way. I get you. I feel you, Ryan. I feel you, the Yankee fan in you. I understand where you want this to go, but a realistic number helps the team greatly. And so where did they sign up for 25-25 from him? And by the way, attention to detail at second base. Good second base play. Where's a place the Yankees could get better? They had the worst defense at second base in the majors last year. Can Jazz Chisholm, who has the skill set to be better than that, actually deliver it by concentrating all year and delivering it? Again, we're trying to piece how the Yankees get back to the top of the AL
Mhm.
East. How do they get to those 94-ish wins again that will probably win a very, very tough division? It's not, well, Juan Soto's going to have the best of bat in the major leagues 700 times. That is gone. But
Correct.
can they save runs at second base? There were a lot of lost runs at second base
Yep.
last year, right? There was, a lot of lost on base percentage all over. There was very little, especially pre-Jazz, running on the bases where you found some hidden uh, slugging percentage by gaining 90 feet. And so, I just think these are the places, and especially now, you're not only replacing Soto, but you're going to have to find ways to win without Garrett Cole and
Absolutely.
win without Stanton, who was another power bat, and win without Luis Heel, who was the rookie of the year last year for a good part of this season. And so, these other parts of the team do need to fire, and they could fire. These are talented players. The Yankees still have a talented enough team to win 90 plus games and win the division. Will it fire? Well, that's why it's a great novel. We'll read the 162 pages and see what happens.
Joel, I love these answers, even though you're
I'm
avoiding my
hiding from the
realistic,
answers.
unrealistic. Yeah, you are, but you do it in a clever way, and I appreciate it.
Yes.
And I think fans should read into what you're saying and
Yes.
picking up what you're saying. So 25-25, I think, should be realistic for Jazz Chisholm. So 30-50 might not be realistic for him. Cody Bellinger.
But can I throw in one other thing? Is
Yeah.
I wrote about this in the last week since I got back down here. This is my last day here. I'm actually going over to the Mets after the game today. But in Yankee history, they've had two 2020 players only twice in their history. O'Neill and Jeter in 2001, A-Rod and Jeter in 2004. The record is three. The 88 Mets had Hojo, McReynolds, and Strawberry. The '09 Phillies had Jason Worth, Rollins, and Utley. So can Volpe be a 2020 guy? Can Jazz be a 2020 guy? Can Bellinger be a 2020 guy? Can Dominguez be a 2020 guy? If I get 80-80 or 100-100, again, it's not Soto,
No.
but you're starting to do the math about how you replace it and
Yep.
score in different ways than a Stanton would produce runs if he were around. And it is not impossible to believe. By the way, Volpe was 2020 and 23. Bellinger was 2020 and 23. To your question, Jazz was 2020 last year. So it isn't like some yellowing page when these guys did it. Those three guys did it within the last two seasons, and it's within Dominguez's skill set to do it. Could the Yankees, who have been slow on the bases for years now, suddenly be a team with 4 2020 guys and set a major league record? Like, if I were a Yankee fan and something I were tracking this year, I'd be like, if that happens, how would they not have a good offense?
Yeah.
As long as Judge doesn't get hurt. If
As long as he
those
doesn't
four
get hurt.
guys, if those four guys are even close to 2020, 15 and 21, 18 and 18, that kind of thing, and Judge bats 700 times, they will average 5 runs a game.
Yeah, it'll be a very different offense from last year, but it'd be an offense that you can really get behind. And the guy you highlighted there, Cody Bellinger, realistic, unrealistic, 30 home runs, 100 ribbies, hasn't done either since his MVP year in 2019. Is that realistic for Cody Bellinger with the short porch in right field?
Again, what is 25 and 90? What is 25? You're going to the upper end of this, and the
Correct.
like look at it this way. If Cody Bellinger is 30 and 100, he's going to finish in the top 10 for the MVP. Right? If he is 30 and 100, with the way I'm watching him defend and run the bases, his value is not going to be that different from Kyle Tucker, who's I keep hearing is going to make $300 to $400 million in free agency in the offseason. So if he's that guy, then again, like now, if we're getting to 30 and 100 for him and some 20 and 20s and Judge bats, they might lead the league in scoring without Soto, which would be amazing. So will all of that go right? Very infrequently does the loftiest expectation at each position go go right.
Correct.
But I still think that this team has they led the majors in homers last year. I think it was like high 230, 237, 239, someplace in there. I still think this is a 200 homer team with Judge's health. Everything is around Judge's health now. It's so important to them that Judge stay healthy and bat 600, 650, 700 times. With Judge's health, I think they could be a 200 homer team. And with general health, they could be a 125 steal team. They will, if they go to those two numbers, it's very hard not to average 5 runs. And if they average 5 runs, that's what they averaged last year with Soto. They were the 3rd highest scoring team in the sport, right? Behind Arizona and the Dodgers. They led the American League in runs. So it's a different way, but I don't think I'm overshooting it by talking about 200 homers. I don't think I'm overshooting it by talking about 120 to 125 steals, right? If they hit those numbers, I just, like with everything that's gone wrong, and this has not been a great camp on the injury front, it would be hard for them not to be a very good team again.
It would be. Joel, last realistic and unrealistic. Paul Goldschmidt. Can he reach an 850 OPS? Something he has not done since his MVP year in 2022. He had an 824 OPS in the final 60 games last season.
Yeah, I would go under on that. And again, I have a very regular theme here. If it's 750, if it's 775, think about how much better that would be than last year.
Oh, they had nothing from last year.
Right. They had the least production in baseball in left field. Before Jazz got to the Yankees, the worst production at third base and among the worst production at first base. Those are 3 corner positions for the Bronx Bombers. The Bronx Bombers, and by the way, they still got to 5 runs a game, getting nothing. They had the fewest home runs in baseball out of left field last year. They had bottom 5 OPS and steals out of left field last year. You're wondering why Alex Verdugo doesn't have a job, right? Like, that was left field for the Yankees. They got very little, like, from first base. You're wondering why Anthony Rizzo doesn't have a job.
Yep.
Those guys batted 1,000 times for the Yankees last year combined. 1,000. 996 is the exact number. So, to me, like, you know what I'm saying is like if you got league average in left field and league average in first base, you are making giant strides from last year. If you get anything above it, you're making giant plus something. So 750 at first base. 775 is huge. And Gold, I should add this because I think it's important. Again, it's spring training, but this is history. Paul Goldschmidt and Cody Bellinger are good baseball players. Our theme last year was the Yankees played a lot of bad baseball. Watching those two guys just play spring training, I go, there go baseball players. Now, will Cody Bellinger play like 2 years ago when he was a top 10 MVP guy? I don't know. Will Goldschmidt play like 2 or 3 years ago when he was the MVP? I don't know. But I'm pretty sure that they will play the game technically well with good intention and good enthusiasm. Which again, as you're thinking, how do the Yankees cope with what's missing? Soto, Cole, Hill, Stanton. That's part of the equation. The equation here isn't Judge plus Soto equal pennant. It's going to be a much longer, it will look like one of those formulas from Good Will Hunting, where you just have a lot of numbers on the board, and it's a long string where where most has to go well.
Correct.
But they are capable of it. And it will be, I think you used a term, it might be more enjoyable for a Yankee fan to watch the breadth of how they play this year. And again, let's see it. There's still some stuff I'm watching in spring training that I'm going, a little bit of this,
Yeah.
like lack of detail, but not from those two guys.
No.
Those two guys are baseball players. And the Yankees desperately needed to add baseball players. And you hope, if you're a Yankee fan like yourself, that becomes the cool thing to do. Like, it felt a little bit like in the second half last year, the cool thing to do was not give a fuck. Like, we'll just hit a 3-run homer and beat the White Sox, we're fine. And I think that needs to be the way the Yankees play the game. Like, Paul Goldschmidt doesn't run fast, but if Paul Goldschmidt should go first to third, Paul Goldschmidt goes first to third. Right? Cody Bellinger is a good detail-oriented baseball player.
And both of them have been again, we can't read too much in the spring. Both of them have hit pretty well in spring. So
I'll
it's
say
encouraging.
Bellinger's a guy who I've hardly seen take a swing where the ball didn't get hit hard also.
It's been a lot of fun to watch him play, man, in spring already.
Can they put that in a trunk, carry it up north to play against the Brewers in about 10 days? I don't know, but they actually have a lot of guys swinging well.
Yeah.
You know, strangely, the guy who's not swinging well is Judge. I wouldn't worry about Aaron Judge. I would assume 45, 50 homers from now, he'll be fine, you know? But you have to factor that in. Judge hit 58 homers last year. It's probably like you're talking about like the upside number on a guy. Like if Aaron Judge hits 45 homers this year, it would be minus 13 and he'd still probably be in play to win the MVP.
Yeah.
So like I don't want to take anything off the plate with Judge, who I watched hit 62 homers in a season. I've watched hit 58 homers in a season. I've watched hit 50 another time. So I guess everything's in play. But like, if he hits 45, it's a great year, but he'd be down 13. So, now you're down 13 there. No Stanton, no Soto. So these other guys in that long Goodwill Hunting equation.
Long Goodwill Hunting.
Right?
Yeah.
The Yankees need the breadth of the team to play well.
And they need that progress from those young guys that we talked about, like the Wells and the Volpes and even Jazz Chisholm. They need them to take that progress. And I'm happy we went through this realistic, unrealistic expectations experiment. I think we got a lot of good answers out of you, Joel, there. I want to wrap up with Joel's notebook. Roster decisions are being made. We've highlighted that all this entire episode about roster decisions. But in your time in covering baseball, is there a surprise or the most surprising where you've seen a player X make the opening day roster that had you go, that was very surprising in either a good or bad way?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot, and none jump to mind except for one, and it's in the Wayback Machine. It's over 30 years ago. In the early 90s, the Yankees had a guy named Mike Humphreys, and he had a great statistical spring training. And the Yankees weren't very good, and they let the statistical spring training put him on the roster when they kind of like knew Mike Humphreys wasn't that guy. And very shortly into the season, it became realistic. Now, what I would say, that was a spring training in Fort Lauderdale, right? The Yankees were still training in Fort Lauderdale. I was still a beat writer. The one thing that is differentiated why you could maybe believe certain things, and I think you mentioned part of the modernity before. Like, I'm sure there was no exit velocity on Mike Humphries. Not only that we didn't have it, but that he didn't have it. It was like he's blooping balls. He's had a good 3 weeks where a couple of bloops land, the high sky gets a sunball, and suddenly you're hitting 405 in spring training, and your team sucks, so they put you on the team, kind of thing. So I think what exists now is the ability, and again, will the Yankees with Carlos Carrasco, you could say the exit velocities on this are X. The swing decisions, he's hitting strikes, not balls. He's taking balls. You could know this in a way. You could judge each at bat in a way we couldn't in 1992 or 90, whatever year Mike Humphries made the Yankees. So, like, part of the Ben Rice dynamic is he's swinging at strikes. You can see it. Go on your computer and see swinging at strikes. He's hitting the ball hard. Trent Grisham is hitting the ball hard. And so Cody Bellinger's hitting the ball very hard. And so those are numbers that say something, but they're also being done against, like, are they being done against the guy who's working on his fastball and is only throwing fastballs? Right? Is it off of a double-A pitcher who's going to be, like, working in a grocery store in 3 weeks? Like, kind of thing. So that is why first of all, we know if you're a fan of any team, you're a fan of the Yankees, Mike Tauchman could have a good 6 weeks. Mike Ford could have a good 6 weeks. Like, if you're good enough to play in the major leagues, you're good enough to have a good 6 weeks, and you're good enough to really shine in spring training. Greatness is about the full season. So that's why I always temper this, which is any major league player is good enough to be good for a short period of time, including in March. What does it look like over a full year? Having said that, there have been full years where Cody Bellinger is among the best players in the sport. So I think, I'm still flabbergasted that multiple teams didn't try to acquire Cody Bellinger. Maybe over watching 162 games, I'll go, there it is. Now I know. I was wrong. But I was shocked. I think he's a very good baseball player whose floor is very good. Is good. Like, I don't think the floor is what got him released from the Dodgers. I think his floor is now probably like a 750-ish OPS and really could run the bases and defend in multiple positions willingly. It's one of the great things that's happened for the Yankees this spring. He's been like, you need me in center, I'll play center. You want to go left? I'll go to left. You go to right? Go to right. You want me to give the guy a day off at first base? I'll give him the day off at first base. Like, he's been a willing player here. He's a baseball player, man. I'm telling you, him and Goldschmidt are baseball players. And are they good baseball players? We'll find out over 162 games. But, that's a little bit of a difference from last year. The Yankees wanted to get more baseballery. When I brought it up last year, they acted like it wasn't a problem. Then they got a bunch of players that suggested it was a problem. So I do think they addressed it somewhat.
Yeah.
There's some loose threads still in there. And we'll see if the group can kind of get it together. But yes, I think you'll get fooled in spring training if you're disciplined and willing to look at inside the numbers a little less than you would have in 1992.
Right. And
yet you could still get fooled because they're major league players. And so a major league player, again, think about Ben Rice's 50-ish, 60-ish games last year. If you judge him on the first 30, you'd think, wow. If you judge him on the last 30, you'd be like, are the Long Island Ducks calling? So who is he over 162 games with that in his pocket now? Like, I know what the major leagues look like and smell like. I know what the travel is. I know the clubhouse. I know what major league pitching looks like. I addressed some stuff in the offseason. I felt like some balls were dying out there. I added 10 pounds of muscle so the balls don't die out there as much. Worked on some stuff with my swing. He's a pretty smart, confident kid. He's going to get, now, is he Kevin Moss? Or is he better than that? That's why I like, one of the reasons I really like sports is most of life you don't get answers to things. In sports, we're going to, over the next 7 months, get answers to all the stuff we talked about today. Yeah. Literally everything we talked about today. like Volpe's on base percentage, Wells on base percentage, Jazz's homers and stolen bases. Starting March 27th, we begin to get answers. Most shit in life is we don't know. Like, what's the best thing to do about pollution? Who knows? But we will get answers to this. It's why sports is one of the reasons sports is great.
It is. And it's also great because I get to have conversations like this with you, Joel, and we get to talk about all this Yankees team and roster decisions they're going to be making over the next week or so. And I'm looking forward to speaking to you again as we get ready to start this season, man. We're a little over a week away. We appreciate you, Joel, as always, for giving us your precious time. And we're looking forward to speaking again next week, man, before the season gets started, okay?
Yeah, let me give this box back to Susan Waldman and Dave Sims.
You're the man, Joel. Thank you so much.
All the best.